Welcome to the Mentor Me Kelly Show. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. I'm also affectionately known as the Speaker Mogul. Now, on this show, you will get a behind-the-scenes look as I mentor and provide strategic guidance to women speakers, experts, and thought leaders to elevate their speaking business. I'll do this using our P6 framework: positioning, prospecting, pitching, pricing, packaging, and presentation skills. So listen in as they ask questions and I give answers. But don't just listen. Take notes, take action, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mentor Me Kelly. So I told y'all before in the inaugural episode that I started this because I really want to help women experts, women thought leaders, women speakers to get to the bag in this business, right? The speaking industry alone is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The corporate training industry is a $100 billion industry in the United States. It's over $400 billion globally. So what that means is that there is lots of money to be made. And when we're talking about women thought leaders, we're really, really in demand. The problem that we have right now, though, is that we're not part of the supply. So there's, if there's a demand and you're not part of the supply, it doesn't really matter. And we're not part of the supply because of a lack of knowledge, right? We really lack knowledge around the business aspects of speaking. And so that's why I want to start this. My guest today is going to be Stacia Crawford. And I'm going to have her introduce herself. But for those of you who don't know me, maybe this is the first time that you have encountered me and you're like, who is this chick? I am Kelly Charles Collins. I am a retired employment law trial attorney. So for 2 decades, I represented companies in trials trying their cases on employment law issues. So harassment, discrimination, retaliation, all the mess y'all do at work. And a few years ago, I transitioned to become a full-time entrepreneur as a keynote speaker and a corporate trainer. I'm also an award-winning TEDx speaker. And I am also a strategic consultant for women thought leaders. So my companies, I have HR Legally Speaking, and that's my company as a speaker, my training company, and then Speaker Moguls, which is where I work with women thought leaders and women experts to really elevate their authority and to position, package, and present their skills on stages and in workplaces to create influence, impact, and income. So I'm all about ensuring that women's voices are elevated, that they're amplified, that they're affirmed, so that our value is not erased. So my goal in doing the Mentor Me Kelly show is to really give room and space for women who may not be ready to work with me in my Thought Leader Circle program, which is my 12-month program, but have questions, right? Because I also know that sometimes it's just that, maybe it's just that one little thing, right? And that one little mindset shift, that one little strategy or tactic that will give you the momentum to move, right? So that you can eventually come work with me. So this is my give back. And I'm so glad to give back to my friend, Stacia Crawford, who is amazing. I cannot wait for her to tell you who she is. And then we just got to get into it. So essentially what you're going to be watching is a coaching session, mentoring session. I'm not a coach, y'all. I'm really a strategist. So I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to just ask you questions and let it just hang out there. I'm going to actually give you answers. So Stacia, would you please introduce yourself to everybody?
Gladly. I am Stacia Crawford. Please excuse my voice. It's a little raspy from getting over a cold. I am a television news producer of 35 years, and I'm currently a PR and media strategist. And what that means is that I use my skills as a TV producer, my insider secrets, all of my gatekeeper expertise to help my clients get booked on TV so that they can elevate and get their messages in front of those people who need them, literally reach millions of people with their media exposure.
Yes. So for those of you, like you women thought leaders out there who want to get on TV, who are like me, who are like, Stacia, I really want to have my own show. Yeah. Where I want to be, one of those recurring paid contributors on TV, right? Yeah. So that's what she does.
Because anybody can get on TV one time.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's the recurring. Yeah. So today we want to talk with you though about you're speaking, because even you've been a producer, so kind of behind the scenes, and you work with people now to help them get out in front. But part of that and part of you being able to help those people is also you being seen, right? Out and about and out in front. So floor is yours. Whatever you need me to help you with today, I am here for you. So what questions you got?
Okay. Well, one of the places where I always struggle is, like, for example, in terms of speaking, I know a lot of people do consider podcast speaking, right? It's, you have a platform, you have an audience, and I've done several podcasts. I haven't been able to really leverage it. And I think part of that is because maybe I'm not on the right podcast where my audience is,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a media strategist, I know this, but sometimes we know what to do. We can teach other people not to do. So I think sometimes I'm not necessarily in front of the right audience.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of my biggest challenges, even with when it comes to speaking on stages, is that I don't have a signature speech, and I'm not even sure what that signature speech, and I put speech in quotes because I always think of a speech as, you're standing here, you're talking. I do a lot of, teaching. I do master classes, I
Mm-hmm.
do programs and, coaching and all of that, but I don't necessarily see how that translates into a signature speech.
That is such a really, really good question. And I'm glad you asked that question. So, couple of things. So, one of when we're talking about podcasts, we're talking TV, we're talking about podcasts, we're talking about TV, any of those things, right? We all hear about these things. So, we're like, oh, yeah, I want to get on a podcast, I want to get on TV. But it's not just any podcast, it's not just any TV. The problem that we have though is that we don't know what the right TV is or the right podcast is because we don't have our positioning together. Right? So we were talking beforehand and I was talking about, me being essentially your ideal client in terms of being a thought leader, somebody who really has the chops, right? Who really wants to be on TV, but not for TV's sake, but for really elevating my authority, right? Really being able to create a bigger impact in the world. And so needing a larger visibility footprint, right? So when you think about when you start to think about, okay, what shows do I need to be on? What podcasts do I need to be on? What stages do I need to be on? What do I need to be speaking about on those stages? It comes back to the positioning. So we got to figure out, who is Stacia, right? Who is she really at her core? Yes, her expertise is that she is a producer, right? 3 decades, right? As a producer. But who is she really, right? Who does she want to be in the world? Whose life does she want to impact? And most importantly, this is what I always tell people, that when you're talking about speaking, and whether you're speaking to get paid, you want to be paid up front or you want to be paid on the back end, the money resides at the level of why. So why does Stacia want to talk about, like, why does Stacia want to get people on TV, right? Why? Is it just because, well, that's what I did for 3 decades. I know how to do it, so that's why I do it. Or there's some other reason. There is a deep reason, right, inside of you why you want people to be on TV, right? And so we talk about that why. The other why is, why should anybody care enough to want to pay you? So for you, why would I care enough about what you're saying to pay you to get me on TV, right? So all of those things, like that positioning, I always say it's like the who's, the what's, the why. So in the positioning is like, who are you speaking to? Because, like when you said I help people get on TV, yeah, but is it everybody that you want to help to get on TV, or is it certain people that you want to help to get on TV? So now we have to, okay, I have to identify who those people are. So in your thing, it's like, who's that audience? Right. And so if you're in corporate, I always tell people in corporate, we have like a paying and a consuming audience. For you, your paying and consuming audience are the same people, right? So for me, I'm consuming what you're talking about, but I'm also the person who's going to pay you, right? So I now you have to identify who that is and really start speaking to that person and speaking to them at the highest level of themselves. right? And so it's not that I don't have the credentials, it's not that I don't have the mind, it's not that what I don't have is the know-how of how to get on the stage. You have that, right?
Mhm.
So now we're partners, right? So if I start to think of you as my partner as opposed to you're trying to come from the wounded, right?
Mm.
I'm not wounded. I just don't have that skill set. I'm brilliant. I just don't have that skill set. You have it. So now we can partner, right? And so when you're thinking about your talk, so part of your positioning is your message, right? No message, no money. I always say that. No message, no money. And so when you're thinking about the talk, what we teach is, so we have the signature talk black print that has these 4 phases, and the first phase is this foundational phase where we figure out what your why is. But the other thing we figure out is, like, what is the problems, what are their problems, what is their transformation, how are you the solution, right? And so we develop like your unique mechanisms, like how do you get there? Because if you think about me, right, if we look at me as your potential client, like, okay, what is my problem? Okay, my problem is that I want to be on TV. Like I want to get on TV, right? Well, actually, what's my desire? So my desire is that I want to be on TV, right? So this is what I desire. I desire to be on TV. I desire to be this recurring guest expert. I desire maybe to have my own show. These are my desires. What's my problem? I don't know how to pitch them, folks. I don't know who to pitch. And maybe I just don't even have time. Like, I just don't have the time to do that. Like, I have to do other things. I don't have the time. Here's
Mhm.
here's where I am. Here's where I want to be. Here's Stacia. So when you're building your talk around that whole thing. This is why I always tell people it's not about your story, right? So somebody might say to you, well, tell them your story about being a producer. And no, I don't give a shit about you being a producer. Like, you can show me that in the pieces, but I need a whole message that addresses my problems and my desires with you as the solution. Does that make sense?
It does. It
So
does.
so for you, like, the talk wouldn't necessarily be about you as a producer. It would be, the talk is about me as your potential client.
So the talk is about the potential client and their desire to be in front of more people so that they can impact more people. So it's about,
Right. And how television can help me do that. Right. So if my desire is to create an impact in the world, right? So why do I want to be on TV? Why? Yes, it will raise my level of celebrity, but I want to raise my level of celebrity, not because I want to be like, oh, you give me red carpet, because that gives me the visibility to create the change I'm trying to create in the world.
Mhm.
Right. And so you have to your message has to speak to me there. And then what you do is use all of your expertise, use all of your experience, use all of that to show me that you're the person that can get me there.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. So it's not even like when I think about a signature, signature talk, and it's like people will always like, even with some of them, when I watch it, it's always about this, this challenge and this setback that they've almost that hero's journey
I
type
don't teach that.
so
And yes, right? So I think that also causes people some angst, right? It causes people to be stuck because you'll hear people say, but I don't have that. Like, I don't have a traumatic story. Well, neither do I. I don't
right.
have a traumatic story, right? But if what you're being, and this is why people are teaching you about signature stories as opposed to signature talks, they're totally different. So when they're teaching you about your signature story and they're teaching you your story and you're telling your story as a hero's journey or a V or the arc or the however they want to call it, how long can you talk about that for me to care? Right? So I don't care about your divorce. I don't care about your job loss. I don't care about any of those things unless you can tie it into how it's going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So your 30-year journey as a TV producer, I don't care.
Right.
Whatever. And what I hear is, oh, she got 30 years of expertise behind the scenes. She know them folks. She
Mm-hmm.
knows how to get in there. She knows what she was ignoring in subject lines. She
Mm-hmm.
knows what was like a definite no,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now I always say, like, for our stories, so your story becomes part of the talk, it is a piece of the talk. So the story, then you have to choose, okay, what is the relevant, relatable, and relevant, riveting, and relatable pieces of the story that make sense in the journey that you're taking me on. And the journey that you're taking me on is my journey, not yours,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's my journey. So it's not your hero's journey, it's my journey.
Okay.
And my journey means that you understand my problems and you understand my desires. And so you're going to take me on that journey, right? And so inside of that journey, the way that we build your talks, we use pieces of your story, we use pieces of your client stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? To bolster, to affirm, to support, to elevate, to clarify, to illustrate along the journey. Because at the end of the journey, you want me to do something, right? And
Absolutely.
that's to hire you. But if all you did was tell me about your story, and I was like, oh, that's great. And you got a standing ovation. Oh, that's nice. It's so wonderful. Oh, I feel so bad for you. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of, oh, I'm so glad that you got out of that mess.
And then you go on about your business. Yeah.
So does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it absolutely does. So then once you have, do you have is that the first part of it? Do you get the signature talk first, or do you find those speaking opportunities first and then you develop the talk to the opportunity?
You got good questions. So what most people do is the latter, is that they try to go find something. So that's why people always ask me, like, how do I get paid to speak? Well, that's the wrong question, right? You can't get paid to speak if you have nothing to sell. So when you think about the speaking business, most people don't think of it as a business. Because if you thought about it as a business, well, how do you get people to pay you? You sell them something, either a product or a service. So if you're over here, you don't even know what you talk about, you don't know who you're talking to, or you just got a bunch of stuff, and you're like, well, I need to go find these stages. For who's going to put you there? Why am I putting you on my stage? I don't even know, like, who are you? What do you talk about? Like, what are you going to do for my audience? Right? So when I say no message, no money, the message has to be there. And the thing is that this is the other thing that people, I think, get mixed up. And this is when you talk about the difference between a speaker who just gives information, an expert. So a speaker will give you content. An expert will give you content and context. A thought leader will give you content, context, and connection, right? Most people that you see out there who are like, how do I get paid? They're speakers. They're regurgitating information, right? So for them, it's like, oh, you want me to speak? What do you want me to speak about? Great. I'll go look on Google, or I'll just look at something and I'll give you information, right? So to your point of like, do I go find it and then figure out what to speak about? Those are speakers, right? They just, because all they're doing is transferring information. There's nothing to it. I'm just transferring the information to you. Whereas an expert is like, no, I need to know because there's context around the content. So I'm going to give you a little bit more. I'm going to give you some context to be able to actually interpret that information. And then when you get to the level of a thought leader, not only they're going to give you that, but they're going to connect the dots for you. They're going to connect the why. Like, why do you need to know this? Why is this important? They influence, right? And they shift perspectives. That's what thought leaders do. So if you think of yourself as an expert or a thought leader, then nobody else can tell you what to speak about.
Mm, right,
You
because
speak about what you speak
but you're
about
a
because
thought
what you
leader.
haven't, Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay.
Right? So what you have expertise around, what you have thought leadership around, then and then at that point, you've already built your talk. When you build your talk like that, you already know who you're speaking to. You already know who your audience is, whether it's your paying audience or your consuming audience, you already know who that is. So it's not going to be some random person. And now you know who to go look for. You know who to go prospect. You know who to go pitch. There's only a universe of people. It's not just anybody, right?
Right.
And so people always ask me that question, but it's backwards. The message comes first. And I know people tell you, oh, but the
Yeah.
message comes
That
first.
makes sense. It really does. It makes sense, but it also, to me, it seems like that simplifies it also. Right. And then every time you get an opportunity, you're not trying to come up with a new talk. Well, they want me to talk about this, but then they want me to talk about this. Well, let me go build a speech about that. You have the
Yeah, then you're a speaker. You're not an expert and you're not a thought leader. You're just a speaker because you're just gathering information. I'll go ask Chat GPT or Google and I'll get some information. I'll put it on a PowerPoint and I'll go speak about it. I have no connection to it, right?
right.
It's not deeply rooted in your why. This is why people can't remember talks. This is why they will get totally screwed if, technology goes down and they don't have their PowerPoint because it's not from inside of them.
Exactly.
Right. And so we help you build your talk from inside of who you are. Like this is your talk. When we are doing our signature talk experience and we help them, like our clients can do their talk, like right then in that day, they can do their talk. Why? Because it comes from inside of who they are. Right. It's a thing that they're just like, oh no, this is why I want to do this. If it's why you want to do it, you don't have to remember it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you find yourself to the point that you just made, if you find yourself like, oh, I'm always doing these talks, you got to stop and really think about like, what am I doing? Right. Because that doesn't make sense. Like if you're always talking about something different, no one's ever going to know you for anything. So they're not even going to know to look for you for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's no positioning.
Wow. Okay. That is really good. So then for someone like me, well, for me,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
someone
For
like
you.
me, for
Right.
me,
For you. Because you got my attention for you.
absolutely. So I'm trying to think. So in terms of like topics, I mean, because obviously, when you talk about media, you're talking about visibility, you're talking about elevating your authority and all of that. Those are the things that I speak directly to in the signature talk, correct?
They could be.
Okay.
They could be if that's what your clients want.
Mm.
Right. So if I'm your ideal client and I'm looking for visibility, I'm looking for elevation, I'm looking for my own, like you have to know what they want. That's why we do the foundation piece, because it's like, what are their problems? And here's the thing. So I said to you that I think that your clients are really women thought leaders, right? Women experts, or it could be men too, but just thought leaders and experts. People who don't just want to be on TV for TV's sake, but really are trying to get their voice out there because they have a bigger message. Like they're trying to create legacy, right? They're trying to build their authority and really create legacy. And so you have to think about what are our problems? Like, what is our desire? Right. So you're going to speak to our desires, right? So our desire is to get our message out there on a larger scale at a in a way that nothing else like TV can do, right? It allows us to elevate our authority to say that we've been featured on CBS and ABC and NBC, right? That's a third party validator, right, for us. It allows you to reduce the friction for people when they're like, I don't know, oh, but she's been on TV, right?
Yep.
Because we know
Yep.
there's gatekeeping to get on TV. So now that reduces friction, right? When I'm in conversations with people. So those are the things that you have to be like thinking about. And inside of that, what you can be talking about then is yes. And the benefits are like, you get very visible and you get this. So you just have to know what my desires are. And then, so yes, this is what I want to do. Well, why are you not doing it? I'm not doing it because I ain't got time. I don't know how. Right.
Right.
And so then you talk about that, like, how do you work through that? And how can you, Stacia, be my partner and my solution to get me to my desire?
Mm.
Right? So that's how we would build your talk. But first, I need to understand like why. Like why is this? Why do you want to help people like me get on TV? Like what do you care? Like why?
I mean, for me, there is a deeper why because there, I mean, obviously, no secret here. I'm a Black woman. And when you look at the world, women have, obviously been systemically discriminated against and, but Black women in particular. And so even when you look at like women in the workplace, we're underpaid, we're undervalued. And so by elevating that authority, now, you as a thought leader or an expert, even, say in corporate, you're making what, 72 cents on the dollar?
Mhm.
But when you have that added credibility behind you, ultimately what I do helps women to, get better positions in jobs, move up the corporate ladder, make more money, be able to take care of their families.
But why? But why do you care about that? Who cares? Like that's their problem. Why do you care about that?
Why do I care about that?
Yeah, why do you care?
Well,
Why do you care
well,
if I get more money? Why do you care if I get visibility? Why do you care?
I care about that because I feel like, and I'm sure you've, heard that saying, a rising tide raises all
Yeah,
ships.
but why does Stacy? So here's the thing. I'm going to do this with you because this is a very good exercise that we do. The reason I'm going to do this with you, and for those of you who are watching, we often, like if I say to you why, you'll say stuff like that to me, right? The really high level why. So when this exercise was done with me, it was like, well, why are you doing this work for women? Oh, because I want women to win, right? I want women to win in equity, da da da. And then 4 hours later, it was like, because I'm tired of women's value being erased. So for you, yes, there is this pay inequity, there is this thing, but why? Like, why is this so? Why do you care at your deepest level? Like, what has pissed you off? What has either happened to you personally? What have you witnessed that has pissed you off to the point where you're like, hell no, I'm gonna spend the rest of my days, or at least for right now, figuring out, working with, getting these people on TV and getting their voice out there. Like, why?
Mm, okay. So I'm thinking too high level,
Mhm.
right?
And it's not external.
Right.
The why is not external.
Okay.
It will impact them, but it's an internal thing that causes you to, like for me, why do I want women's value to be erased? Because there were moments in my life where that was happening to me, where people were trying to erase me, right? They were trying to erase me. They were trying to erase me by not paying me enough money. They were trying to erase me by saying that I made too much money to be able to get welfare, which for some people might be like, that's crazy. But it was erasing me because what it was doing was like devaluing, right? $17,000 a year was too much money. Like, where you get that from, right? So from me, there is a personal erasure, like memory of erasure, knowing that I'm brilliant, knowing that I have all these things. And so for me, I'm on a mission to ensure that women who are like me, they're not going to be erased, right? And in particular, they're not going to be complicit in their own erasure.
Yeah.
So what is it that is so deeply ingrained in you? What is it that because in 30 years, you've seen a lot about who gets on TV and who don't get on TV.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that is like so deep within you that it's like, no, I need to make sure that people like Kelly get on TV.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that goes back to things like, when I would, be producing and we might do segments on, obviously we do fun stuff, but
Mhm.
then we do like the serious stuff, like, maybe somebody wants to buy a house and they need financial information and they don't necessarily have access to, go get a financial planner or a financial advisor, but they can turn on their TV for free and they can get, find out what it is that they need to get that, that foundation so that they can go buy a house and take care of their family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's things like that. I mean, I know that a lot of times
But
people.
what about but that's information, right? But what is it? What is it? What? Why? Like, why is it important? Like, why is it important for, are most of your clients people of color, Black people of color, or a mix?
Um, there's a mix, but I would say definitely more people of
Okay.
color.
When you decided that you wanted to do this, right? So you're no longer a TV producer, but you want to leverage those skills to help people who were sending you messages actually show up on the screen. Why? Like, why is it important for you to help people do that? Like, why?
Well, and I mean, initially because it was easy, it was like, okay, this is something, I'm just
Right.
like,
That's
I mean,
real.
this is a 30 years worth of knowledge that most people don't have, and I have it. So why not leverage it? Let you
Okay.
right. It's like this,
Right.
that's, that's valuable to people. Um, I'm
And
trying
we
to
may
think.
not figure it out today, but I want you to think about it.
Yeah, I definitely will. Because I mean, yeah, when you say that that's internal, I really gotta think about that.
And I think if you and this is for anybody who is watching, right, or listening, and you start to think about what your why is. When I say it's personal, we generally when we're asked initially, it's an external thing, right? We're just like, oh, because statistics and systems and processes and all the things that are out there in the world, right?
Mhm.
And if you really get to your true why, you're either pissed or you're crying because now you have tapped into the thing that caused this to be your mission,
Mm.
right? There's a reason. Yes, it's easy, right? It's because it's what you do, but you could be doing a lot of other things too, right? You could do a lot of other things. There is a reason why this is your stand. There's a reason why this is your stake in the ground. There's a reason why this is my stand and my stake in the ground,
Yeah.
right? Because there are things that happen to me over and over and over again. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this no more.
Well, I mean, even when I think about the reason I became a producer in the first place was
Mm,
that, I guess kind of taps into that because originally I thought I wanted to be a producer. I thought I wanted to be a reporter.
mm,
And my first day in my internship, I'm, seeing the stuff that gets on air, how they're, talking about Black people, white people, and seeing this obvious difference. And then I'm like, well, wait, who decides that, the little white girl, and I still remember the little white girl who was, it was horrifying, found, dead in a television box and thrown on the curb is the lead story. But the little Black girl, who was kidnapped and found, she's like way down in the show. And I'm like, why is her life more valuable than her life? Who makes those decisions? And then, they're like, oh, well, that's the producer's decision. I'm like, oh, well, hell, that's what I want to do.
okay, now we
This
getting
reporter
somewhere.
thing, I want to be the one who makes the decisions.
Now we getting
This is
somewhere.
obviously not right.
Right. Now we're getting somewhere. So now, fast forward to you actually being the producer, and who gets to be the voice to tell these stories? Who gets to be the voice to give this information?
Mm.
Right? So, on one hand, it was the story, but
Mhm.
then who gets to tell the stories? Who gets to actually give that information?
Mhm.
Right? So, what you saw was a discounting, right, of experiences. And because of that, you were like, hell no, I'm going to be over here so I could be a part of that.
Mhm.
Now, when you were a producer, and now we're not talking about necessarily those type of stories, but it's still those stories. But who gets to come on TV to share their story or to speak about a particular issue, what happened there? Like, did you have the same type of, was it the same type of discounting or diminishing or?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of times it was because, yeah, the white people got chosen because they had a better presentation. And I still see it, all the time. I still see it to this day.
And so
Um,
what are you doing about it?
I'm leveling the playing field. I'm like, okay, let me show you how to do it the right way so that you can get that producer
Ah,
attention
this has
to
nothing to do
have
with pay inequity.
a
Nothing.
oh,
Nothing. It has to do with making sure that people are prepared at a level that they can show up and have the ability
hmm,
to share our stories and our experiences so that our stories get told.
mhm. Wow. Woo! Okay, I just got chills.
Yeah, that's the why. It has nothing to do with, we get paid 72 cents on the dollar and all that stuff. That's an outgrowth. That's a consequence of us not having our voices heard,
Mhm,
right? That's a consequence of people telling our stories or people not telling our stories. That's a consequence of, you know, yes, the little white girl who was murdered, her life being more valuable than the little black girl or little black boy who was murdered, right? So it is about inequity, right? But it's about making sure it's what I'm saying to you, like about ensuring that you all as speakers, as thought leaders, as experts are prepared, are positioned so that you can show up reducing the friction so
mhm.
that I can at least have a fighting chance. This is what this is about for you.
Yeah. Wow. Woo! Okay. Wow.
And I think if you start to think about it, and if you start to really internalize that, and you start to message from that place and really understand, why am I doing this? It's not to just get people on TV. No, it is to reduce. It is to prepare. It is to position. It is to um like you said, level, you just said it, level the playing field,
Mhm,
right? It is to make it equitable. It is to make sure that our points of view, our context, our stories, our experiences
mhm.
are heard.
Wow. Yeah. Because if they're not, we get erased. We're right back to the erasure again, right?
That's right.
Ooh,
Or we're back to people telling our stories for us. This
wow.
is why Black people in the news are shown as like fearful and angry and this and that, because you have other people creating our narratives.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. We have to tell our own stories.
Yeah. And if we're not prepared to do that, we can complain all we want about not being on stages, not being on TV, not getting the job, we can complain all day long.
Mhm.
If we don't do what we need to do to be prepared, it doesn't mean that when we're prepared, we still ain't gonna have to fight like hell. Right?
Right.
Like Sophia said, every day I had to fight. It doesn't mean that, but at least put yourself in the best position.
Yeah. At least
And
be.
that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you know how to do. Not that you're trying to do, you know how to do it.
Yeah.
It works.
Mm. Okay. I love that. And so pieces of that need to be in that signature talk.
It won't necessarily be in there. It's the context. It's a point of view from which you will speak.
Okay.
It is the thing. So like when I speak as a speaker, when I talk about, conversational cultures and I talk about unconscious bias, the context, the why around that is so that my son doesn't become the next hashtag, right? So I need people to see him as a human being. I need people to see people who look like him as a human being. I never say that in my talk. It is the context. It is what I must stand for. And so it shows up as accountability. It shows up as conversations around humanity. It shows up as, having human connection. That's how it shows up, right? But that's the context, right? That develops those things.
Mm. Wow. Okay. That makes sense. And I've seen you speak and I definitely got that. Yeah.
Yeah, you did do. See? Yeah. So, right. So that's so, and I never said, I don't want my son to be a hashtag,
Right.
but the whole thing when I talked about like bystander and making sure that people are advocates, right, as opposed to performative allies. That's why, right? Because it comes from that place. I need you to do something different. I need to activate you and shift your perspective in some way so that when you see somebody, I don't have to say to you, when you see somebody who looks like my son, I need you. No, just as a
Right.
human being, you know that this is the behavior, right? That you should be. So it's the same thing for you. It's like that's just the place that it comes from. And so when you're speaking, then it gives you the context. It will tell you the stories that you need to tell. It will tell you the journey, the words that you need to use. That's
Mhm.
what that does.
Mm. Wow. This is so exciting. This is awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we're almost at time, but is there anything else, like any other question you have before we wrap up? Because I think this is really helpful for everyone
Yeah.
who is watching.
Yeah, it really is. I know it's definitely helpful for me. Um, trying to think if there's anything else. Because I don't know when I'm gonna get this kind of access again. Um, does your signature talk have to be a certain length?
Hmm.
It
No.
can be.
So
Okay.
talks can be 15 minutes, they could be 45 minutes, they could be 60 minutes, they could be 90 minutes, it could be a whole workshop. So the process that we use, it's called our signature talk black print. So it has 4 phases. The way that we build your talk, it can be a keynote, it can be a 60-minute training, a 90-minute training, it can be a 5-minute, whatever you want to do. It could be a master class, it could be a retreat, it could be a course, it could be a book, it could be anything, because it's really just developing the content and then you're able to expand or contract it as necessary.
Okay.
So we just teach you a system for how to develop it. And then once you learn that system, then you can go build as many talks or go write your book or go do whatever you need to do with the system.
Okay. Is it a good idea to have a book before you start getting?
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to. At some point, it's good, right? Because it's just another authority elevator. It confirms your thought leadership. It's also a good way. Like I write books not for bestseller status. I write them for 2 reasons. One, so that I can give them away because people love to have your books and I sign them. And two, I have them as value adds. So when I'm doing work with corporations and I'm, going to do a training or a talk, then the book is a value add to that. So I can sell the books too.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Awesome.
And
Do
then
you
like
recommend?
those are cards that I created, this box. So that's another product. So that's the other thing. Once you develop your talk, you can use that system to create products or whatever, because you're thinking like, oh, how could I expand the
Yeah,
learning?
you're just repurposing it.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you recommend starting with the smaller talks before, like you were saying, the 15 minutes before you go for like the keynotes?
No, because you're not building a 15-minute talk, you're just building a talk.
Oh,
Right. So the keynotes, the time of the talk is only dictated by the venue or the event, right? So now some people will say, oh, I only do 30-minute talks. Well, great, that's great for you. But if somebody wants a 60-minute talk and you can only do 30 minutes, well, you've just limited your ability to
mhm.
get paid on that stage, right? So a keynote, a workshop, a breakout, whatever, those are just modes, right? Those are delivery methods of how you're going to do the talk. You have your talk. You can decide, or they say to you, hey, like I'm hosting the HR conference, right? The Iconic Talks. My clients who are the speakers, they're going to do 20-minute talks. But that same talk we built so that it could be 60 minutes. Some of them it's coaching programs, it's their whole coaching program. It could be a 90-minute workshop, right? They're just going to condense it. They're just going to, they know what they know the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just going to condense the journey for you, but they're not going to leave any of the pieces out. They're just going to make it a shorter journey.
Okay. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So if you want to see them, if you want to see what it looks like to use the process to do a signature talk, iconictalks.com is our conference that's going to happen March 26th, 2024. It's virtual. And right now, tickets are $100 until January 15th. They're $100 for general admission, $200 for VIP. So if you're a speaker or aspiring speaker and you really want to see what does this look like, what does this process look like, as a finished product, all the women who are speaking, I help them craft their talks. So you will be able to see it in action. They're all my clients and you'll see them.
Yep, I will be there.
Awesome. Well, Stacia, this was so awesome having you. Thank you for being on my new show. I'm very excited about it. I think it'll be useful for people. Before we go though, tell me what was your aha, your takeaway? How was this for you?
It was amazing. And I think the biggest aha for me was just, really digging deep and getting that why. And I think I'm going to really do some more deep thinking and really tapping into that because I think that that'll also help, not only me in developing my signature talk, but it also can help me even as I work with my clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's so awesome. I'm excited for you because I know that there are women out there who, I keep saying women because I work with women all the time, but there are people out there who are experts and thought leaders who really need you. And they're just waiting for you. They're waiting for you to show up. So for the rest of you, I hope you love this. If you think that you should be on the Mentor Me Kelly show, then just reach out to me, drop it in the comments. We'll pay attention to the comments, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook and say, I want to be on Mentor Me Kelly, and we'll send you the information to see if you are a good fit. So yeah, this is just my way of giving back, my way of really supporting my mission, which is to ensure that women's value is not erased and that you are not complicit in your own erasure. So that's it for now. So until next time, take care.